Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the estate, this Living Beneficiaries. This is your host, Rick Hidalgo. I am also known as Eugene Richard of the House of Hidalgo. This is also known as the House of Hidalgo Show. Got a very special broadcast for you today. We'll get into that in just 1 minute. I wanted to let you know that you can call into the show and ask questions. The call-in number is 619-639-4605. Aside from that, you can find us at blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. That's like double play, South Dakota DP. So with that out of the way, like I said, we got a very special guest tonight. I'm excited to have him on. The gentleman's name is Sean Summers. He hails from Canada, and basically what Sean is all about. He's just a guy that's all about freedom. He loves freedom, and he has a little bit of a problem with authority. As we have discovered in the past, that's not really an issue, because the kind of authority we're talking about is totalitarian authority, isn't it, Sean? Sean, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, exactly. It's the tyrannical authority that comes with government and government institutions is what really gets me.
Right. Yeah, and that's what gets most of our listeners, especially when they found out that this government isn't even a government; it's just a corporation selling goods and products. So that enraged some people right there.
Definitely. It's looking like that in a few countries around the world now. They're all corporations now, as opposed to government the way it used to be.
Right. Right. Well, I know you and I talked a little bit before the show began, and the other night on the Stephen Roberts show. It's kind of where I met you, and I appreciated all that you had to say, and I decided, I better have this guy on my show to talk about all the things that he's up to. I noticed in our discussion that you were talking about being part of a Freeman group up in Canada. I wonder if you could just give us a little background of how you got started in that and where your interest was.
Well, I got started after I seen people on the internet talking about stuff down in the States, like different things, like YouTube channels like RP, I think it's 4909. They're a group out of Arizona, and they were upset about tyrannical government, the police doing tickets with photo cameras and taking pictures of people going through lights and stuff like that, and they couldn't stand it because they were saying it was a fraud, and they were going across state borders and stuff like that, and having to stop at these checkpoints between states and having to declare if they had oranges or not, stuff like that. That stuff really got to me, and then I had a few run-ins with the children's services over the years, because I have 3 children. At the time I only had 1, but 3 times I had to deal with them over false claims, and I just felt like I was powerless because I didn't have any knowledge and I was ignorant, and the only thing I knew is what I seen on television, and what was on television is nothing but lies and not the proper information that we need.
Right, propaganda.
Propaganda, yeah, all propaganda, and I always thought a certain way, and then when things happen to me, and then I see YouTube videos with police brutality down in the States and up here. I just it just started to eat at my soul, and the only way I could put it, I went into deep depression because of my ignorance, anger, and I couldn't figure out why I was angry, but it was due to my ignorance that made me angry, because that was my first thing, become angry because I didn't know where to go. But then I found out that there was a Freeman or a sovereign group down in the States, and I was wondering, well, if they know how to learn their laws, then there's got to be something like that in Canada. So I just looked on the internet and found people like Dean Clifford up here, and Rob Renard, and a few other people up here that were talking about Freeman on the land and Freeman groups. I not necessarily all their information's correct, but at least they're doing something to try to beat the system and see what works to fight this tyrannical system that's weighting us down.
Right. And I wonder, you just mentioned something there that sparked a thought. You know, the name sovereign has been taking quite a beating in the media lately, especially when you go to some websites like the Southern Poverty Law Center and some of those debunkers. They go out there and they start talking about sovereign groups and how they're violent, and you know they don't negotiate in peace, and they come up with all kinds of propaganda. I wonder, did the word sovereign deter you in any way, or is that what you were really after?
Well, the word it did in the beginning when I believed everything you'd see on television, but after talking to these people online and seeing their videos on YouTube and just hearing their stories, you know what type of person they are just by their actions and the way they speak, and I've been able to find use like stuff like the Trivium, which tells you about learning to get to the truth of the matter. You can use grammar and recognize rhetoric and use logic you can use stuff like that to help you get the truth behind anything. And when you see them on television making stories up about sovereigns saying that they're shooting cops in the streets, like they'll take it's like saying, one person in the sovereign group was crazy and went nuts, and then painting a whole group of 300,000 people that way. It's wrong.
Right. And go ahead.
And then also saying that people that are not sovereigns are sovereigns. People that have done things, saying they're sovereigns after the fact, and making up backstories to say they were when they're not.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like saying that because that dog down the street had rabies, all dogs have rabies.
Yeah, exactly. and that's a fallacy, right?
Right.
It's not fact, and that they lead people to they wanted to demonize people for speaking out against government. And it's like up here we have our version of the CIA, which is called CSIS, and they put out information on our Freeman group saying we're a possible domestic terrorist group, because we trying to learn the laws and don't think that certain laws pertain to us. There's no law that says we don't have to agree with the government. There's no law to say that we have to say that all these laws pertain to us. And they leave that out. They just say this is the way it is, and they don't have anything to they just try to. It's like the bully in the schoolyard. If you study for the test, and the bully doesn't want to look stupid, so he's going to pick you apart he's going to pick you apart in the schoolyard before you even get to class.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They just throw it up there for everybody to see, and get people to think that you're doing something wrong when you're not.
So let me ask you this, Sean. You mentioned that you've learned a lot of things about, being free and the principle of sovereignty. And obviously, sovereignty is just an extension of our relationship with God. God is the only sovereign, and He imparted that sovereignty to us. It just makes sense. It's just like when you give birth to a baby, you impart your genes to your son or daughter. It doesn't, it should make sense to everybody, but it doesn't. But in your case, Sean, can you tell us, did you go to school to learn about this, or did you self-study? How exactly did you learn about all these things?
Well, I didn't go to school any further than first some college, and the reason I never finished college was because of debt and teachers going on strike. And having to get on with my life instead of waiting for people to strike. And debt was too much. It was just too much for me to handle. Like one semester, it cost me $10,000. It takes 10 years to pay that off. But I'm getting off topic here. But what were you asking again about the? How I came to learn it.
Yeah. Because basically, the thing is, what I'm trying to get at, Sean, is a lot of people, they weigh the value of a person's opinion on the education that they obtained from some kind of a prestigious university. And what I'm trying to get across here, Sean, is you're a well-versed person who knows a lot about law and truth, and it wasn't because you went to a university, it was because you studied it out for yourself.
I did. I went out and I read the maxims of law. They're always good to have because they're like some of the oldest laws that are just accepted, because they've been around for so long. And you have to look. You have to just know who you are. Either you're a slave to their system, or you are a human being that was born, like you say, under God. How can one person, like for example, the Queen, be a sovereign, and she got her power from God? Why would we, if all people are equal, why would we not be a sovereign?
Exactly.
Why are we not kings?
Mm-hmm.
We are.
Yep,
We're
we are.
as much king, as anyone else, or a queen, and we have every right to do anything we want as long as we're not harming another person or harming their property. We should be able to do anything we want, but if we're not infringing on someone else's rights.
Right. So Sean, I can hear the skeptic. They're not calling us right now because they're probably a little nervous to get on with us. But you can hear the skeptic come out right now, and what are they going to say? They're going to say, "Well, Sean, what you're saying is, if somebody gets a little tipsy and gets behind the wheel and drives, should they not go to jail?" That's what they're going to say, right, Sean? So how would you respond to that?
Well, something like that, it's for, they make everything for your own safety, Is there if that person gets in that car and is using that weapon, as a, is using it like a weapon and not being responsible and not caring about other people, then sure, they should be, there's a point. Like, are they going to be charged? Is it like a pre-crime? Is that what we're getting into? Sometimes I wonder about stuff like that. There are gray areas, but they just keep throwing statistics out there saying you have to wear a seatbelt. Some people think that seatbelts make you more unsafe because people drive worse because they wear seatbelts. Right. Yeah.
It used to be. I don't know how it was in Canada, but I'm guessing it. People are people everywhere. It's the same. It doesn't really differ very much when you go from society to society. But it used to be in this country back in the 50s and 60s. You go back and you study that time period. Officer Friendly notices that you're a little tipsy and driving. So what does he do? He pulls you over. He takes your keys and he takes you home. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, so what changed between the 50s and Officer Friendly taking you home and today, where they give you they don't even give you breathalyzers anymore? I got a friend of mine who actually they took a blood sample from the guy and and measured it right there to see what his alcohol level was. Not just infringing on his opportunity to travel where there was no injured party, but also infringing on his right to his own body.
Yes, privacy.
So what changed between their 50s and today?
Someone's agenda to get more control over everything, our everyday lives. Like they could say, like so many people are killed by drunk drivers. There's all kinds of criminals out there, but because I see it every day, everywhere I go, because there's criminals, I have to suffer. I have to accept the fact that I can't get certain prescriptions without showing government ID, and I have to wait for a doctor to give me a prescription because people abuse drugs that you need for health care.
Right.
So, and because people abuse it, then I have to pay. I've never abused drugs. I've never done it, but other people do. So because there's other people do stuff wrong, then we're the bad guy,
Right.
That's the way I see it. But,
No, I agree with you, and I guess that's the point that we're trying to put across here is, the difference between the 50s and today is no more than a out of control corporation that's looking for every penny of revenue that it could possibly get. So instead of taking somebody home, they're going to ticket them, they're going to throw them in jail, they're going to make a jail bond out of it, and they're going to monetize the jail bond, and they're going to go through every stream of revenue that they possibly can. And go ahead.
Yeah, like exactly what you're saying, and they're going to end up, and down there, don't you have subcontracted jails? Like those people are making money off the people going to jail.
Oh yeah, they're private jails.
And how many people in jail are in jail for victimless crimes?
Most of them.
Yeah, no victim, or they had no contract, even civilly. If they're in breach of some contract that they never agreed to.
Right.
That they end up getting taken civilly and then put in jail after the fact because, any judge that sees any kind of breach of trust that is criminally liable, they are forced to put those people in jail too.
Right.
But or make them charge them criminally anyway for certain civil claims.
So I feel like I might have deterred you from the subject that you intended to talk about here, brother. I'm sorry about that. I know you wanted to mention the Freeman and what they were all about. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, like the groups up there here in Canada, they a lot of them just want to be left alone to live as human beings and take care of their own. They want to, contract with people themselves and be totally liable for themselves. If they were to break, some of these guys, if you're working at somebody's place and they get hurt, well, they're liable for that stuff. Everybody's liable because you're the only one that can go all in. Another person can't. Like an insurance company's not going to go all in for you. They're not going to jail. You're the one going to jail if you do something wrong.
Right.
You weren't being safe, and making sure that your workers were safe, for example. But they force you to do. How does a person? I don't even know how some of these guys make a living now that they have to pay for insurance for their jobs. They have to, and they're forced. Government has up here we have a thing called workman's comp, and you have to pay them. You're forced by law to pay them 20% of what you make on every job now, in case something happens. Plus, they have government regulations that you have to have all kinds of safety harnesses and stuff on, which might be common sense safety, but then after you've done all the safety stuff, they want to make sure that you pay them to make sure you're not liable for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though you're liable anyway.
Right.
you're always liable for your actions.
Right. Yeah, it's the difference between the private and the public. In the private, where we have unlimited liability, whereas in the public, with a corporation, they have very limited liability, and it's that way on purpose because this is a corporation ruled society that we live in.
It's just a lot to handle for a person that's been working employed themselves over years, like being roofers or contractors, any type of person like that. They just keep putting on the laws and regulations. I don't know how any of these people make any money anymore.
Well, here in America, none of us make money because our money is debt.
Exactly.
They think they make money. They perceive that they make money, but they really don't. All they're doing is trading debt notes
that the government gives value to. The government says it's worth something, so it is.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the people's trust. The people trust that there's value, so they use it to barter, and then they're taxed for using it.
Yeah, and then the tax comes with hidden tax with inflation, because they start printing more money, making more money, and then that's taxes that we're not aware of. That the price of your food's going up, or the price of gas is going up. That's all tax too. Tax on the money that the government's printing out to pay for all their debt, or the debt. That's what we're paying, and we're putting that on our kids, and our grandkids are going to have to pay that off.
Sean, I should ask you this question because I know how I feel about it, but how much of that national debt that's talked about all the time, how much of that do you believe belongs to the people?
Of the debt belongs to the actual free people of this, or the government agents? Well,
when I'm
that's a trick question.
here in America, we have obviously a constitution that was derived on the consent of the governed. So in other words, we the people are the rulers, and they only have authority based on our consent. So, and really it applies that way all around the world, but we just have this document that happens to say it very, very clearly. So my question is, from what you know of this national debt that they're talking about in the trillions and soon to be in the, I don't even know what the next zero is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's quadrillion, a quadrillion?
I have no idea what it even is, but that number gets staggeringly huge. Every day it increases by whatever proportion.
Yeah.
How much of that do you actually believe belongs to the people?
I don't believe any of it does, because I think the people are the ones that give everything value. They're the true money, the people themselves. Because our labor and what our worth is what gives the whole system any kind of, like our signature is what makes the money.
Absolutely. And if you want to go into that, if you want to share that, Sean, go for it. Right now is a great time.
About how our signature, like I'm just saying, like people, what I've learned so far about money, that we can create as a human being with their signature can create wealth, and everything that the government uses us, we're kind of collateral for all for everything that all the money that they print off. We're collateral for that money, and sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, why don't you use the occasion of buying a house? You want to go ahead and go through that scenario and tell the people?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
As far as I know, we're signing a promissory note to promise to pay back money that we're going to create ourselves, which is after we sign on the dotted line, the banker is the administrator. So they're saying, well, we'll get this money for you, and you'll pay it back with interest. But what the people don't know is it's the Canadian Bank, the Bank of Canada with us, but with you guys it's the Federal Reserve.
Right.
Will release the amount that you created. And then that's what you're using is the money that you created, and then you're paying back the bank money and interest. So it's like, and then they can collect that money after the fact.
Right.
The money that the Federal Reserve created. And
right. So just so the people can follow here, what you're saying is they take your signature, which is the only piece of this whole process that has any value.
That's right.
They take your signature and they monetize that signature. They take it to the bank, and within 72 hours, I happen to know this because I've studied it, but within 72 hours, they monetize, they take that entire debt and shift it over to the ledger from the debt side to the positive side, or from the we'll say the red to the black.
Yeah.
And essentially, you really owe nobody. You really that money has been created out of that account that was made specifically for you by your particular so-called government.
That's right.
So really, when you think you owe a debt, that debt's already been paid, and it's just a fictitious debt, and that's why we're in this whole foreclosure and housing scandal that we're in. Is because people are figuring this out.
Yeah, and beyond that too, like you could get into the part where the banks can make so much, lend out so much on that money that they have in that account too. Like they can, take at different times they'll say, but usually it's 10%. So they can loan out another 1,000 on 10,000.
Yeah.
So you could get into that further. We won't right now, but it's a lot. It's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is.
Just as long as people know that the banks aren't taking it out of their vault and giving you their money. That's not what it is.
Right.
It's not that simple.
Right. Exactly, and that's important for people to know, especially people who are trying to live as free men. If you're trying to live as a free person and you don't have the understanding of how the monetary system works or how commerce works in this land, that's that's the first thing you're going to have to do is educate yourself in that area.
Yeah, I'm working on that right now, getting further into the money aspect of all of this, and that's an important thing to learn. Is about money and what money is, because it's not just dollar bills with signatures on it. There's a lot more to it than that. There's all different types of money.
What's interesting is I was listening. Do you know who Bill Still is?
Bill Still, I'm not familiar with the name. No.
He put out a video called Money Masters, or The Secret of Oz.
Oh yeah, I may have seen that. Yeah.
Okay, well he was. I heard a program with him on it. He was on a program the other day, and he mentioned, and I thought this was a unique idea, but he said that literally you could pay off the entire national debt with all the coins, because coins retain value where the paper, the fiat money, has no value. They're actually on two different scales.
Because the metal in the coins, yeah.
Right. So that was kind of a curious idea. I'd never even thought of that before. But the coin actually carries value, whereas the fiat money has absolutely no value.
So when they're saying that all the money that's out there, like the fiat money that's out there, there's never enough fiat currency out there for all the debts to ever be paid. So that's why money is debt.
Right.
But, the coins would be probably something different. Because they have intrinsic value. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think from what I understand, they're actually minted by a whole different agency, where the fiat money comes from the reserve and they print it, the U.S. Mint actually handles the coin, and it has value based on some factor that I'm not sure about. I'm gonna have to look further into it, but it was a curious.
Well, proof of that, like up in Canada, we did away with the penny. It cost more to make the penny than it did to not to have it. So we don't have it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, we don't have a penny.
Because I have a bunch of Canadian pennies in my piggy bank here.
Keep them; they're going to be worth something one day. The metal in them, anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'll tell you what, Sean. I got a 30-second spot I'm going to run real quick, and then when we come back, we'll get into a different subject.
Sure. Thanks, Rick.
Do you remember the series of the 70s and 80s? You know, the Dukes of Hazzard, I Dream of Jeannie, Mork and Mindy, Hogan's Heroes, the list goes on and on and on. Of course you do. Why? Because they were family-friendly shows. What's the one place you can go on the internet to find them? www.retroshowsarbetter.com. Go by my A store and get yourself some popcorn and a movie and meet me there. All right, I'm on the call here with Sean Summers. He is a sovereign freeman from up in Canada. Sean, I missed what part of Canada?
Oh, I'm outside of Toronto in Ontario.
Oh, you're close to where they held that big summit then.
Yeah, the G20 in 2010. Yeah, that was quite the fiasco.
You wanna maybe go into a little bit of what happened there and how you perceive that and where you went? Yeah.
It's just overkill by the police and you know, taking citizens and taking free people and just, you know, throwing them in cages with force, brutal force. And a lot of them never really did anything wrong. You know, sometimes you almost think that some of the stuff was set up deliberately to be able to put on a show, and they were changing laws and saying that people couldn't go certain places. And, you know, there's a CBC television up here. There's a show called The Fifth Estate. If anyone wanted to look it up, it's called Better Off Staying Home. Better Off Staying Home is
gotcha.
Search for that. And search for that and watch that documentary on it. It's just unbelievable. It was kind of life-changing for me to see what kind of stuff was going on with the police force and how they treat your everyday person.
So did you get any? Did you have any friends or any acquaintances that went, and did you get any reports back on that?
Yeah, I did have one friend that was up there. He was in the university up there, and his group was. What happened was there was a whole group of people from Quebec that were staying in a gymnasium at one of the universities there, and the police came in and arrested them all and charged them with all these crimes, and with gunpoint, the SWAT team took them all out and treated them like they had no rights. And he was with that group when it happened, and it wasn't. They were breaking everybody's rights and trying to say that they were all. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but they weren't doing anything illegal. The cops weren't.
Right. Or perhaps they thought they were doing something legal, but by doing so, they were breaking every law conceivable.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think they seem to try to get away with stuff and see what the people will put up with.
Yeah.
You notice that down in the States, when they were going home looking for that teenager after the Boston thing. You see people giving up their rights for safety.
Right.
It's kind of looks a lot like a police state. And I look at stuff like that and I see that's coming here soon because we're kind of like your little brother up here. Whatever happens to you first happens to us next.
Yeah, I hear you. It was looking a lot like a practice for martial law to me.
Yeah, it did to me too. It's and you try to say that, but people think that you're not empathetic to any victims, and I'm one of the most empathetic people you'll ever meet. You know, I can relate to that. What kind of tragedy that is. I just can't relate to the tragedy after the fact, where people are getting treated like criminals in their own homes because there are other criminals.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. I was trying to recall. You had some other things you wanted to bring up here, Sean.
Oh, we were talking maybe getting into some of the. I watch a lot of court cases up here on YouTube and stuff that Canadian sovereigns put up, or Canadian freemen put up, or anybody that's trying that type of challenge in the court systems up here, and just trying to figure. They're trying to deconstruct or reverse engineer what's actually going on in these courtrooms, and they're looking into jurisdictions and what jurisdiction they're in. I watch that. I watch people trying to not have the government claim them as surety on the birth certificate when they go to court.
Do you guys have flag rules up there, Sean?
The different flags in the courts.
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Do you guys have?
Not that I'm aware of, but I noticed that in our courts, we're a sovereign country. Well, supposedly a sovereign country, Canada. And we have British flags in our courts up here. Now, I would think that because the court supposedly is in Admiralty jurisdiction, that they have a British flag in there. That's the reason why that they're not.
The reason I asked that question is since we're on the subject of courts, here in the U.S., we have a manual that's put out by the military, talking about different flag rules. And one of the rules of the flag is if it has a gold fringe around it, that's symbolic of Admiralty jurisdiction. You go into any courtroom, or really, to be honest with you, any corporate administrative hearing or anything, you're going to find a gold fringe flag in that particular courtroom, and they treat it very much like the bow of a ship. The bar and yeah.
I've heard that. We've come across that here, that in statute courts where you're guilty of a statute offense, that you're actually in a admiralty court, and the judge residing is, basically an admiral. He, let me see how they put it. You can always tell which jurisdiction are in by the different. Like if you're in a common law court, the general would give you orders. So you always hear they get a court order to give you something. Well, only generals give orders, or higher-ranking officials give orders. Where in admiralty, you get requests. You'll get a lot of requests in an admiralty court from the judge. And us as nobility, we should be asking questions. We command with questions, like a sovereign would question the admiral and not let he doesn't answer any request. We don't, as sovereigns, answer any requests. We only give questions and command by asking questions to the administrator of the court, which is the JP. We don't have any judges up here. We only have justices of the peace because they're not elected.
Right.
Down there, you have elected judges.
At some levels. Some are appointed.
Yeah. No, at some levels, you actually have judges. We don't have judges up here. They're all appointed.
Yeah.
Which is the justice of the peace up here.
Right. So let me ask you this: Are they all robed?
Yeah, they wear robes up here, and they look fancy and try to make themselves. They call them your worship and stuff like that. I myself could never call anybody your honor or worship. I would never do that. I would never lower myself below a person to ever do that. So I never took a life up in the military. I could never.
Yeah.
having a problem with authority, I don't think they would have taken me anyway.
I hear you. I hear you. So, anybody having any success changing jurisdiction inside of the courts?
Well, I've seen people always getting in, they end up getting shouting matches with some judges, and other judges are, they just pass the buck. They don't think, because if you don't know who you are, you go in there and you're not doing it right, they're going to eat you for dinner.
Yes.
They're going to throw you in jail, and you're going to say, "Oh, I'm in jail," and then run. But there's guys up here that go to jail, and they stay in jail for a month, and then they get out, and then all the charges are dropped. The one guy, for example, here that I don't agree with violence or anything, but he's got to the point where he pulled into a parking lot, and it was icy, and it spun around, and the cop came and started saying he was going to charge him with all these charges on private property, and he just said, "Oh, by what laws?" And they start saying different acts. That's what we have up here. They're statutes. He says, "Oh, they're statutes." He goes, "Shove your statutes up, you know what?" And then the cop didn't like that. He was in contempt of cop, I guess. That happens up here. You can contempt a cop and they'll arrest you, right? It's not a real charge. It's just kind of a joke, right?
Sure.
You don't talk back to me, you're arrested. But, he got arrested, and the guy tried to throw him around. And this guy that I know, Dean Clifford, he's a peace officer himself, because he's done things where, he's sworn an oath to uphold the peace, and he's had people pay him, a couple dollars to be their peace officer. So he's a recognized peace officer in Canada under the law, and he said that he was going to arrest that officer for being aggressive, and he told him who he was, and that he was a sovereign, and the cop didn't listen to him and wanted to throw him around. He punched Dean in the face a couple times, and Dean launched him across the icy ground, and the young officer had to phone in reinforcements, and the reinforcements arrested him and charged him with 11 different offenses for wrestling around with a police officer. They call that assault on a police officer, and a bunch of other offenses. But he had 11 offenses. Long story short, he didn't let them get jurisdiction, and they threw everything out of court. It was called, what do they call it? They stayed all charges, which means they could bring them back within a year. But they're not going to bring them back within a year, And I'm counting the days. I can count the days. There's probably about 10 months left until they can bring the charges back. But they know that he knows who he is, and but they'll make it look like he did win some technicality, or
Sure.
They even threw him in solitary confinement when he was in jail because he was teaching the inmates about their rights.
We in the group that I'm a part of, we try to approach situations like that in a peaceful manner.
Yeah, definitely.
And what tends to happen is it defuses the officer, or what I call a revenue agent, and the revenue agent is diffused by the situation, and most of the time, unless you have a prior record or something, they let you go.
That's a great way to be, because people always, they're going to respond to violence, but they also are human beings and will respond to kindness.
Right.
They'll respond to your story. You don't have to be violent to get your point across. And especially people that have never done anything. That have perfect records and, just want to go on their way and don't want to be charged for crimes that aren't, that they've never contracted to, and crimes that are with no complaint, no person, no victimless crimes.
Right. I know that also that a lot of the revenue officers, really at that level, they're compartmentalized and they really have no idea even what the law is.
No, they only know that to work as a policy, to enforce policies for their company.
Exactly. Yep. And that's all they do. So, in some ways, I think we're better off just giving them the benefit of the doubt, and even if they're wrong in their assumption, if they give us their little what they call a ticket, but what's actually a what do you call it? It's a bill of retainer. Bill of retainer. Once they give you that bill of retainer, there's better ways to deal with it. If you deal with it within a day, usually you can get that ticket thrown out real quick if you deal with it the right way.
Yeah, I've heard people sending in a notice of mistake at that point, and the tickets go away. A notice of mistake saying that if you think I was surety for any birth certificate when I'm a beneficiary of it, then you're mistaken, and I have no contracts with your corporation / government. Your whoever you're dealing with, like a city government or a city bylaws. You have to give them a notice of mistake because their bylaws were posted. You may have not read their posted bylaw.
Well, what you have to do is always be the same person all the time. What a lot of people make the mistake of doing, Sean, is they change who they are based on what's going to benefit them at the time. And
that's true.
And when you do that, and you're inconsistent, they get to know the fact that you're inconsistent, and they will find a loophole somewhere in order to throw your butt in jail or do whatever it is, get a big bond on you or whatever it is that they're looking to do. For instance, by telling them that that you're a sovereign and that you have no contract with them, that you're the beneficiary, that's great and that works. But then if you turn around 3 months from then and sign another adhesion contract to renew your driver's license,
yes,
what are you communicating? You're communicating that yes, I do have a contract with the state. I'm willing to sign my signature on this dotted line and let you tell me that whether I'm allowed to drive or not. You know what I mean? So
you can't. But the thing is, we have a right to contract. We have a right not to contract, and
right.
all these things are different entities. Like when you go get your license, that license isn't because you have that driver's license doesn't mean that when you're at court, the person on that driver's license isn't the same person that's in court that they're trying to charge.
Oh no, you're right.
So you just have to know who you are at different times. But like you said, it'd be much easier just for them to let us do what we want, travel, not have licenses. If people want to contract with the government, go ahead. But we have every right to be here and use the resources that we have, and contract with other people and make money that way and not have to pay for everything that's ours anyway. Like it's everything on this are yours, everything. But the government just holds it in trust for you. Right. All resources, including yourself. You're a resource, and they hold that in trust.
Right.
And then they try to. They only give out a little bit to you during your lifetime of all that, and then they take from you more than what you're entitled to as a human on the land that you've been born on.
Right.
And that's what it gets down to is, do you believe that you're entitled to part of the United States, or do you believe that you're only entitled to what the government says you're entitled to?
See, here's the thing. I don't even believe that they're the government.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too.
That's
what is. the last count I've heard is 6 different United States. You know.
Yeah, right.
How do you know who you're dealing with too? Like, unless you research them, you don't even know which United States you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's very difficult to keep up with that. So here's the bottom line. The easiest way to approach this whole thing is to completely get out of commerce, okay, and live as a common law person under original jurisdiction, under God, and just, this is who I am. I don't want to contract with you. Keep your driver's license to yourself. I don't need it. God told me I'm allowed to travel. That's why He gave me feet. You know, that's why He gave me a brain to invent a car.
Exactly.
Okay, I can do these things because it's not based on your authority. It's based on the authority from which I come. So you know, I think eventually, Sean, and you might agree or disagree with me, but eventually that's how it's going to have to play out, because you're either going to be with the corporation, or you're going to be without the corporation. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground for long.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Myself, like, I try not to contract with any corporations. I don't even shop with corporations anymore. Maybe get food, but you know, if I need something, I'll go to a yard sale and get it. And I don't need very much, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and you know, going back to something you said earlier, you were talking about that you've dealt with Child Protection Services a few times.
Yes.
I can tell you, those buzzards have been around my house as well. I have 6 children, and
wow.
We you know, you get yourself in situations being somebody like us who's freedom-minded.
No, definitely.
Yeah, you get yourself in these situations where people don't understand what you're doing, and they call they call what they consider their authority over, you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Your kids are playing in the mud in the backyard. Oh my gosh, you know, their kids are playing in the mud. They don't take care of their kids, you know. So, you know, here comes the child protection agent out to your house, and you know, they want to come in. And by the way, it's totally lawful to tell those people that they cannot come inside your house.
Yeah, I did that to them. They tried to get in my house. I'm like, you're not coming in my house. There is no children here right now, you know. And then they threatened to bring the cops. So I said, you bring the police. You are not coming in my house. And they left. And they apologized in a letter, like, because I wouldn't let them in, saying, oh, I'm sorry, you know. But, you know, they have to come with an order from the judge, and you don't even have to accept that order. I don't take orders from a JP, and I don't want a contract, so I'm not accepting orders, and I won't sign it. So then, you know, I guess they got to take my kids and illegally kidnap them, but whatever. I will never sign any paper that they would bring here.
Yeah, that's why I call them pirates, you know, cause,
yeah, totally pirates.
You know, because that's what they do. They pull up on the broadside of your ship, and they either take all your possessions that they think that they're inclined to, you know, or else they try to use a weapon on you in order to compel you to do what it is that they want you to do. And I hate to say that, I really do, because, you know, I want to be just a common, everyday, you know, loving citizen of the world that, you know, picks daisies and runs around the field. You know, I'd love to be that, but that's not who we are. That's not how. We can't be that way, because they've kind of forced us into the corner.
I like, on the same topic. I just was reading this article today about a judge from England saying babies born to prostitutes, drug addicts, and other criminals should be adopted at birth to prevent them from following their parents into jail, leading judge says.
Wow.
So that's like it's not that you're a prostitute at the time. If you were a prostitute, or at one time you were a drug addict, or at one time you were a criminal, that you're not going to be able to have kids. They're going to take them from you.
So
This is where it's going.
I have to ask you this question because it's just an obvious question at this point. How do they know that you've been a prostitute?
Yeah, like they're saying if you were charged with prostitution.
Oh, okay.
In the past, then you're not going to ever be able to be a mother. So they're just going to take your right to having children away if you've ever been a criminal. Another thing today was in Scotland they're assigning a guardian to every child born there. So you're going to have a government guardian for the child's going to have a government guardian that's going to come in and check on the child for their welfare.
Well,
that's the next step there.
That's horrible for Scotland, but we've had that in America forever. It's called a social service agent.
Oh, you have something, well, other than are you talking like what we were talking about? Is that something above a social service agent? You have an agent that comes around? Or?
No, let me tell you a story. I home birthed 4 of my 6 children. Okay. Well, when you home birth, you end up having to do things the long way. Okay, because like for instance, my second child, when we home birthed them, obviously it doesn't automatically generate a birth certificate. And at the time, I thought, every kid has to have a birth certificate. So I went and I had that process done, so on and so forth. But it's interesting. In Florida, you go to the environmental health department to get a birth certificate. And you go up to this window and you tell the person that you need to register a birth. And the person, first question out of their mouth, because nobody ever home births, the first question out of their mouth is, what hospital was he born in? And so you have to go through this whole story, He wasn't born in a hospital, he was born at home. I birthed him myself. And eventually what happens is they take you to the back, you fill out all this paperwork, so that you can get the whole process started. And what happened in this case is this nurse came back and started talking with us, and they asked us like 20 questions.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
And you won't even believe what it was related to. They asked us, do we intend to homeschool? Do we, all this stuff is
like it's any of their business.
Yeah, like it's any. They're basically trying to put us into a box. They're trying to bracket us. So we at the time, like I said, I was still asleep, so I answered all their questions, and at the end they wanted to do a wellness check with the baby. So I knew enough to know not to let them out that door without one of us. So my wife followed them over there, and we choose not to vaccinate our children or anything like that. So the nurse comes back with the baby, and she offers us this brand new service that they just invented, right?
Oh yeah.
This new service is they will have a agent come out to our house and read our children books. Okay, and I'm like, hey, we're literate. You know what I mean? We can read our own kids' books.
My Lord.
So we refuse their service, but I'm just telling you, they come up with the darndest things
to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the coin. Like up here, all our stuff's all outsourced like that too. We have outsourced companies that do the child services thing. Well, I can tell you horror stories, but
I'm sure that you can. But we're down inside of the last minute of the broadcast, and I wanted to let you come up with a final final thought. You got something you want to close down with tonight?
Well, I just want everybody to know that there's something better out there for everyone. It's called freedom, and you don't have to be a slave. And free yourself from all the hardships that are created by government, tyrannical government.
Mm-hmm.
We need government, but we don't need tyrannical government.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well, Sean, I just want to say I appreciate you being on the show this evening. It's been a blast. I would appreciate even in the future if you'd like to even just kind of give us updates of things that are going on in Canada from time to time. I invite you to do that anytime.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Rick. I really enjoyed being on your show tonight.
So for Sean Summers, this is Rick Hidalgo. This has been the Estate on the Hidalgo show tonight, and I just want to say to all of you, God bless and good night.
Good night, guys.